Yeah, so welcome again, everyone that joined us through the opening practice session. So Kittisaro and I are just going to offer some input around the Ekayana, being Dharma, I don't know, training or course that we're offering next year, starting on January the 17th, and it runs for a whole year. And so we'll both give a little bit of just an opening pitch or sense of what the course is, and then really happy to take any questions that you may have about it to see if you would like to join us in this committed year-long practice that we'll be doing together. So yeah, Kittisaro, if you want to start, if you wouldn't mind, it'd be super.
Greetings, everyone. I want to say a few words really encouraging. All of us, and myself included, to take advantage of opportunities to deepen in the Dharma. And this this one-year course, in it, Thanissara and I, in a graduated way, give talks around and study materials around these different dimensions of the Buddhist teaching. The Buddha taught in a way so that the path would unfold. We touch on various templates that are very important in the Buddhist transmission, like refuge, precepts, faith, the sense of urgency, the Four Noble Truths, the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, the virtues, the paramitas that inexorably carry one, how the Four Truths flower and open into the great Bodhisattva vows that remember that we're all in this together, one family. All of these different teachings can be focused on individually, but they can also be confusing because they seem so separate, and which one shall I do? And that's where this principle of Ekayana, Eka means single, one way. The Buddha emphasized that all of his different teachings, though they're focusing on different dimensions of our human experience, they all move in one way. They're a one-way path, or that one way sometimes translate as the direct way. Or you've all, or many are familiar with this notion of entering the stream, how the stream of Dharma, the Buddha gave an image that just as all the different rivers inexorably flow eventually into the sea. In the same way, all of these practices take us to the pure heart, take us to the home territory, take us to the primordial matrix, which is the sacred ground from which all things emerge. So that's Ekayana. Ajahn Chah, beloved teacher, taught about how this path gradually unfolds. He said, first we hear the Dharma. We hear some teachings about even a notion of awakening, notion of being caught in affliction and suffering, and how there's a possibility of seeing through that. So he talked about hearing the Dharma and then studying the Dharma. Not only hear, but then begin to study some of these principles. And then he talked about how that flows into understanding the Dharma. So even theoretically, this is quite important, getting a sense of what we're doing. Hearing, studying, understanding, And then he talked about how that leads to practicing, putting that theoretical understanding, which is good, actually practicing it so that not just an idea, it becomes a part of our being. Practicing, and then that leads to moments of seeing the Dharma, really touching into. This is a wonderful moment of really entering the stream as we're touching into what really is true. But rather than stopping there and putting the flag up, oh, which is easy to do, I'm the one who knows, to realize that there's an ongoing from seeing the Dharma to being Dharma, to little by little recognizing the different dimensions of our life where these different afflictions, subtle and gross, come up, of arrogance, of separation, of jealousy, or confusion, or grasping, aversion. In the way this course is unfolding, we're giving us all the opportunity with regular talks and study materials from the scriptures, opportunities for Thanissara and myself and others of our SMS teaching team to meet twice a month with those who do this course, to meet online, so that little by little one has the chance to enter this stream. Now there's another stream. There's the stream that we, I think, all quite painfully know, the stream that pulls us into division, into suffering, into confusion, all these currents, toxicities of greed, hatred, and delusion, what the Buddha called the three fires or the three poisons. And so these practices, these dharmas, rather than hating those or denying those, little by little through the power of awareness and inquiry and practice, one little by little recognizes their illusory nature and little by little lets go and begins to touch into this underlying stream or pull. We chanted it today in the qualities of the Dharma, that on page 4 of the chanting book, the qualities of the Dharma, that this true nature is always here and now, timeless. But there's a word that's very connected to Ekayana. The word opaniko sometimes translates as furthering or deepening. I see it visually, that principle, as a spiral that little by little draws one more and more to the center. And so that little by little, as we touch into these different dimensions of our life, little by little we have the chance to sense this magnetic pull of the Dharma. How is it a magnetic pull? Because it's our true nature, and we become orphans of our true nature when we're lost in these different tangles of identity and positioning and lose touch with the deep sacred web. So Ekayana means that all of these different teachings, little by little, lead back to this one heart, this one mind. And I, over the years, I've really appreciate every opportunity that I can get to practice. This course arose when Thanissara and I realized many people had done retreats and were having powerful, calming and liberating experiences in the rarefied, specialized, which was important, container of the retreat space. But when we started this course, we realized that then there was a lot of trouble integrating it with daily life. And so in this way, everyone is having who does this opportunity from at home to cultivate these teachings and little by little allow them to be irrigated into the different dimensions of our life and still on one's own, and also there'll be the opportunity for those who wish to do this with another or with friends, because Thanissara will say more possibly about that, the container on Mighty Networks that is helping us organize this material. But I really want to encourage everyone to trust this flow when we touch into the Dharma sincerely, with humility, and a kind of sustained way. So through this year of practice, touching into all these different dimensions, bringing the Mahayana, the Theravada, bringing these different very important templates of the Buddhist teachings together, and realizing that they all point back to this one, the purification of this one ground that we all share.
Right. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to, this course, this course has been running and evolving for nearly 20 years since we first ran it as 3 in-person retreats over a year with a group at Dharmagiri in South Africa, KwaZulu in South Africa. So, and then we would send out material to keep the practices and the learning going between each of those nodes, those retreats of meeting. And and exactly what Kittisaro said, it was both to help people integrate the retreat experience and translate it to everyday life, but also because there was so many large geography. There was such a big geography in South Africa that it wasn't easy just to come to Dharmagiri, which is not particularly easy to get. It's in deep rural area in the mountains. It's not. It's, you know, it's a schlep to get to. So it was also to have people have access that were all over southern Africa that could come and connect. And back in those days, the way that we disseminated the course was through DVDs, so it gives you a sense of the different world that was. But basically, the teaching frames have stayed the same. And I remember Ajahn Chah talking about, well, in teaching the same thing over and over. And someone wrote this morning and said, is it the same course as Awakening the Heart, which we ran a few years ago? It's got some different elements too, which I'll mention just now, but it is the same material in more or less in that it's core material. It's material that really arose from our learning as monastics, Kittisaro for 15 years and myself for 12 years, in quite at an era that was a very rigorous training. And there was a lot of embodying, deep embodying, I think, of these principles, of these core teachings. And there's a certain way that they don't change. And there's also another certain way that in our culture, it's like, well, what's the new stuff? You know, what's the more advanced stuff? Well, really, it's a question of deepening into even the very simple dharmas, like all things are impermanent, because we operate on the assumptions that they're not all the time. So it's not a question necessarily of getting a new template of teaching, although there are evolving ways that teachings are expressed according to time and place that are very important to explore and consider. How do we speak to this moment? So we have added a 4th module that is about that, actually, sacred activism. How do we speak to this moment? But generally speaking, all of this teaching frame that we're offering through these 3 modules, each module has 12 lessons within it. Each lesson you can self-pace according to your schedule and your world, your time, your energy. You don't have to complete everything that's on offer in each lesson. You can take essences if you don't have a lot of time. But the point is really to keep deepening into these core dharmas. Because once we can really feel those and embody those, they actually shift our pathway towards what Kittisaro mentioned, this stream entering the stream, which is basically talking about going beneath the separative consciousness, the dualistic consciousness of the mano-vijnana, the mind that operates from object-subject all the time. I am the internal object a subject looking at the objects of the world, and between that distance there is the dynamic, usually of samsara, which can be transformed into the Brahma Viharas, into wisdom and wise reflection and evolutionary growth and deepening in the Dharma. That choice, that point of pivot is something that we look at again and again in the Dharma. How do we navigate that duality, and then how do we dissolve it? And the essence of the Mahayana is actually the Heart Sutra and the Shurangama Sutra, turning the mind back to the source, is actually going beneath the cognitive frames, the conditioning processes, to begin to explore the open, timeless dimension of reality, which is available to us through this citta, through this heart. Is this true citta, true heart? So all of this teaching frames that we're offering are both a container and a guide into this most subtle aspect of the Dharma. So it's not another elevated teaching, because they're all there in the frames of the classical transmission. And so in the monastic life, one of the primary teaching methodologies through time and space actually is repetition. It's really repetition of the same, whether it's the repetition of learning frames like these mantric forms, these chants, or frames of the teaching and practicing again and again. And so that groove deepens into this stream, entering the pathway of the mind, rather than always being in the surface reactivity, starts to have a different pathway to flow back into remembrance and recalibration and reorientation within this timeless, unshakable liberation. What is the fruit of this path? The Buddha said it's the unshakable liberation of the citta, of the heart-mind. Things come to shake us, but we cannot be shaken. We certainly can be wobbled. And so the other dimension I want to talk about in the training is that the piece that we're really developing this time, given this time that we're in, where we're all shaking and wobbling by everything going on, as the sort of really as the norm is being shifted into an unacceptable norm of normalizing genocide and fascism and climate collapse, these sort of three intertwining devastations that are fast being eroded as requiring any real consequence and deeply informed and moral engagement. So this, of course, we have to counter. We have to counter that attempt to normalize this unacceptable erosion of all the values, humane values that sustain and protect the whole web of life. And so in that process, I think one of the most important things is for us to find community and develop community. And so we have scheduled 2 meetings a month to also build Sangha, which is as important as the learnings of the Dharma, to build community together, practice community in this Dharma. And so one of those meetings will be with us. We're hoping to turn up as much as we can, and our teachers, to really just reflect on the themes that we're covering in that month, and if there's any questions. So it's really about the Dharma, and the other meeting is really about cultivating Sangha. So it will be a practice session. We have practice leaders to hold the session and to have times to meet. I'm sorry that I wish we could all meet in person, but we have the breakout rooms, which are, can be very valuable just to connect and reflect. And so this sort of over a year, there will be a growth and a connecting of Sangha as well, which is really to help support us all, including, us doing this is also supporting ourselves through this commitment to engage a process that brings this, allows for this entering the stream together and this deeper refuge to become embodied and real. So I think those are I think those are some of the points that we want to, and we can certainly send more detailed, construction of the course. We can send that out probably in the next newsletter. Yes, you'll be able to download the course. We're working towards a platform that you can download everything and then live with it, so this course just repeats. It's not, we don't really feel we own it in that way. We're just part of the ongoing transmission. The Dharma is open-handed to be shared. We have also a system of, there is a payment system just so we can keep the wheels on our SMS, but there's always both scholarships and always freely available for those that aren't in a strong economic situation right now. So there's a graduated scale, but the entry is possible for everyone, and there's no, that's, we want this to be available, as the Buddha made available, freely offered, open-handed.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you have any questions in the chat or live, that's super helpful. Anything you'd like to ask about further, we can open the space. You can put your physical hand up. I think we can see, and Karim, who's supporting the session with the Zoom, or you can, with the icon, the react icon, you can put a little palm up. So yeah, anything you would like to ask about or mention, and super helpful to know right now, because it also helps us. Rachel, greetings. Hi.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm curious, in the meeting sessions, will there be ongoing, I'm imagining yes, but will there be ongoing periods of practice that we'll have together? Like sitting practice specifically?
I didn't quite catch this.
In terms of the bi-monthly, twice a month,
Yeah.
Rachel's asking if there'll be ongoing opportunities to sit together.
Well, I think what can happen, which we haven't tried to do because it's a little mind-boggling to try and do, and we don't know who will be entering the course. There is a bit of a questionnaire as to people's affinities. So I think there's an opportunity to also create affinity groups, practice groups together beyond that. We can help do, absolutely, so that geographically located groups.
You could explain about its own Mighty Networks for them.
All the material, people can chat there too. All the material is going on Mighty Net. I mean, none of us particularly seem to like Mighty Networks very much. All these platforms, they're quite sort of, I don't know. It's just, but they are a function that we can actually put everything, and then we can get questions and so on.
And see who else is on.
You can see who's there, and then we can find a way to Karim. Yes, as I was saying, it will be available ongoingly. Yeah, Karim is part of, in our engine room at SMS, and part of designing and helping support how best to disseminate the what we're doing. So I think having breakout groups, and there can even be fluidity between them if you're traveling somewhere and there's a geography. I think we can definitely help organize that.
But it's a very good question, and if you already know, or if once the course is on and one sees through mighty networks and we see who else is on the course, if one wants to have regular meetings in your own time with others who are doing it, it's very powerful if one does this course together, because it really brings, I mean, the Buddha didn't just throw Sangha in as the third refuge as an afterthought. It's very important. But even if one can't find someone else, you know, there is at a minimum, these twice a month, there'll be the opportunity, and you know, you'll see the dates are already there, the times are already there. We're twice a month, one focusing on the material that we're doing, and then the other more focusing on some practice together. But there will be myself and Thanissara or others of the Sacred Mountain Sangha teaching team there for that. So that's the best way I can reflect around that question. But having practice been so important for me over 50 years, I really see this principle of opanayiko, this spiral, and back to what Thanissara was saying about, well, it's just the same old stuff. It's all the same old stuff, but retouching with humility, like sometimes one can hear something 100 times, 1,000 times, but as one keeps with the best of one's sincerity, reflecting on change and dukkha, and how when we really see things shifting and dissolving, touching into this principle, for example, of anatta, it's not a being, it's not a self, it's just a flow, a dharma. Surprisingly, that's why the Buddha used these templates that, you know, we can think, oh, well, I did the 3 characteristics 15 years ago. Those 3, the Buddha talked like even to really go into change. When, you know, from yes, intellectually, we all know that the weather's not always going to be the same, but to really moment to moment start to metabolize some of these principles really does take one deeper and deeper in unexpected ways. So that's why just these opportunities to have it, to go through a process over a year together with others, touching into these main reflective templates that the Buddha underlined as important. I really have no doubt that it is an auspicious thing to do.
Yes, yes, thank you. So, will us to be meeting with us once a month, other sessions, a more practice one? Otherwise, we're on our own to read and study. Pretty much, we will meet as many, we will do as many as we can. We are dedicating next year to developing more of a transmission of these core teachings, different frames. This is a primary frame through the Ekayana. And so we're giving over a lot of, we want to be there as much as we can, or one of the teachers. And then the practice ones, yes, I mean, we might also hold some practice sessions if we're available, no one else is. Yes, you're on your own, so there will be some self-motivation needed, you know, like to create your own schedule. And I think this leads into the second question, a few hours per week. Yes, I mean, there's 2 Dharma talks. You don't have to.
What is engagement?
It means doing it, doing the actual. There's 2 Dharma talks offered. You don't have to necessarily listen to them both. You can listen to them driving, or I've even sometimes listened to them going around the supermarket. It's not optimum, but you know, it's just what your life can do. Or you know, sometimes maybe Dharma talks seem to help people go to sleep. I'm not sure that's supposed to be the reason for them, but they can be last thing at night. And then there's also a little short sutta or teaching frame that you can probably read in 10 minutes, but there are some inquiry questions for that frame that you can contemplate through the week. And then there's also some meditation tips, sometimes guided meditations, which you can use. So those are that's the main frame. It's not an onerous body of work or a deep, like, we will be using Bhikkhu Bodhi's book, which we recommend you get as a it's one of the best translations, we feel, of the Theravada texts, and then providing some of the Mahayana texts that you can live with and work with through the particular time frame that we're studying. And then not everyone's meets everything every week, and that's fine. You just keep going and starting again. We will start again. We don't we can return to some of it later when we have more space. So yeah, and this sort of ongoing, both maybe the small groups, I think we for sure will help arrange small meeting spaces that you can get some allyship with and support to keep going, the twice monthly meetings. The Sangha spaces of those will be also balanced with self-motivation, self-commitment. I think in the Guardians, the Guardians of the Sacred, where we practice 3 times a week. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, we are offering a chanting group, and it's just for that chanting and prayer. It's a half an hour. At the moment, it's 8:30 to 9 a.m. Pacific time. At the moment, we're offering it 3 times a week. We're going through a lot of structural change at SMS, and so we've sort of lessened a little bit our offerings to manage that. But there's other things you can join from SMS to support, and that 3 times a week, the chanting, because there will also be an invitation to learn some of the chants, which we can give extra support around in the practice and the meetings, so that if you can learn a few of these chants, they're super helpful, and some of the mantras.
So, for example, back to what Thanissara said about using Bhikkhu Bodhi's book as a reference, where he has got a wonderful overview and commentary on the different dimensions of the Buddha's teachings, and then offering different suttas, different actual teachings that the Buddha gave around those particular topics, and then there'll be the opportunity to just take one, at a time, and reflect on it. You start to get the feeling of allowing the Buddha's words and the sound. We're attuning to the sound, the resonance of the Buddha's teachings. Learning how to read a text, and just because this will be part of the course, notice how it impacts us. Reflect around that. Have some practices around that, so that we're really allowing, the Buddha is still speaking, his Dharma is still alive. The refuge that we touch into in every moment of mindfulness is timeless, so it's still vital. It's right here with us. So this dimension of how study, meaning allowing the actual Buddha's words, engaging them, flows into practice. Practice meaning, actual moments of awareness where we're putting some of these principles into the reality of our moments of being. So,
sorry, I was just looking.
Thanissara, I can't see that.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking for the book to show you. It's in the Buddha's words. It's an anthology of sutta. So we'll send all of that out. So, Austin, hi, greetings, good to see you.
Good to see you too. As I'm a little time poor next year, my wife has given me specific instructions of a budget of in-person retreat time next year. So I'm gonna get one bite at the apple here in the next month to go through the retreat schedule with her. And once it's final, it's final. So I just want to make sure that there's no in-person retreat that you either recommend that could be supportive of this course, or something formally before I lock in my in-person retreat schedule for next year.
We haven't at the moment scheduled a complimentary retreat for this course during the whole year. We could offer something at the end of it, which may be really lovely, to find a space or a couple of spaces that people can come together in retreats. So yeah, so anything else that you feel is complementary to deepening your practice, Austin, then yeah, go for it.
But the dates will be that we're going to be meeting, or when one signs up, they see those dates.
Oh, those dates are on
the online ones.
Karim, maybe you could put the page up, if you wouldn't mind, from our SMS that has all the dates and the details. So those twice monthly meetings are set already in the time. Thank you. There you go. Cherry, and yes, in the Buddha's words. Yeah, it's a great anthology, and of course Bhikkhu Bodhi and Thanissaro Bhikkhu and many others have done great translations. Melissa, hi.
Hi there. I'm wondering about the commitment. You've used that word, committing to your practice, and I feel like with my schedule, I could commit to engaging with the material, but not necessarily attending all the Zooms. So I'm wondering what level of attendance you're expecting, or
This is completely up to. This is a support. This isn't a graduated training with certification or anything like that. This isn't like you have to jump through these things or turn up for this. We understand, particularly now, that people's lives are really, it's very hard to manage the juggling so many things and everything that's happening. So it's really completely intended as a support and a development of deepening your practice and having opportunities to join Sangha. Sometimes for some people, joining Sangha isn't that supportive. It can be very complex. And it's like, I just want to do a personal study, and that is fine. So I think at any level you want to engage it, for any time you can offer the materials there, you're super welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, because we have to be careful about it. There's always more that we can do. And one of certainly I suffer from it, great pernicious illnesses of the time is always feeling like a failure. We never quite measure up, and nothing's ever enough. And yes, there's a principle of learning how to find our edge and make the effort. Notice when we're just distracting ourselves, and try to make more effort to allow the grounding and the magnetic pull of Dharma to more and more enter our life. But we really trust you and everyone to really listen into what are the realities of our life. And so just as Thanissara says, just see what one can do. And that is part of the Ekayana. That is part of what little by little, those little rivulets and streams that little by little allow the fracturing of our being to be drawn more back into a kind of holistic presence. So you're very welcome. Everyone is welcome who can't necessarily make every meeting.
Yes, it's not a requirement, and it's not possible because things happening all the time, going away, traveling, going on a long retreat, whatever. Will the flow of the year start with the first basket, transmission, samadhi? Yes, the first is the container, the jhana factors.
Well, refuge is important, faith, or this element of trust and precepts, and mindfulness, and I mean, all of them interweave, but that whole first module is also looking at paramitas, these different spiritual qualities, like generosity and restraint and renunciation and a wise reflection, and all these that little by little gather. And then in the second module, it's still those first principles are operating, but there's more emphasis on the investigation, the Four Truths. Obviously, they're supported by all that we've already done, and the more deeply going into the suffering and the ending of suffering, and looking more deeply and continuing to look more deeply. We've already started it at the hindrances and deepening power of samadhi, the meditative practices of unifying the heart and feeling that calming blessing of that. And
I think the jhana factors are in the second module, around samadhi, and the hindrances, countering the hindrances, and the vipassana. And the third module.
But they'll be touched on before that, you know, so they
Mm.
all interweave, but we want to make sure in that first module that one's really establishing the foundation. And then the last one, even though these elements will already be touched on, is more highlighting some of the Mahayana teachings, which will already have been touched on.
This is a lot focused around the vows of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, keep around the maintaining of the Dharma and the turning of the Dharma wheel, and this subtle, the compassionate, merciful, Pure Land aspect of the Kuan Yin transmission, but also the subtle meditation, the Shurangama Sutra, which is the foundational sutra in Zen, which deals with turning the mind through contemplating sound or returning the hearing, listening into the heart, returning the mind to its nature, prajna paramita. These are so it's compassion, the bodhicitta, the vow power, but also where that emerges from, this non-dual realization. So we're looking at that in the third module. And the other two sort of build towards that support into that more subtle aspect of the Dharma. And then this new fourth module, which we're still constructing, will how do we apply all of this? And connecting all these dharmas to supports for responding and being engaged in this time of great turmoil. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Sanyat, his audio. Wow, that's super.
Audio version of the
of Bhikkhu Bodhi's book. Let me just I'm just going to capture that myself before we. Yeah, so I think we'll have that's one thing that the Mighty Networks platform will really help with, which is sharing resources. And we would invite you any themes that relevant resources for the themes we're contemplating. If you have particular challenges with the practices, is the practice, yes. Well, the place to ask is more when we have the teacher meetings once a month. So the practice sessions, really, we like to try and just keep for practice without getting in too much dialectic unpacking of the teaching itself. I think that will be perhaps a sense of sharing how it's going, but we will have the once a month teacher time exactly for what you're asking.
which is going over the material, but also fielding questions.
Monica, yes, and also you can write. You can write, and so one of the teachers can respond if there's an emergency. And the main teachers are ourselves, Sumeda, and Adam, and our other core teachers as well when they're available. Nadia, have you found? Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, so we could probably research that. Yeah, so we've this next iteration is a development. It's probably our more ambitious one so far, but I remember running this course when it was all audio and before Zoom, and trying to find in South Africa where the internet was spotty, like hanging off top of walls and buildings and trees, to try and get internet to send out things and hold audio conversations. So it's yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. The dreaded Amazon. We are trying to boycott, and really important that we boycott these megalithic sort of consumption machines that are just chewing everything up and supporting all these horrors going on. Yeah, that's a or audible, yeah. Or we might just have to read it.
I love having the text and just allow even just a little. I mean, there's something in our conditioning that thinks more, more, more. What I really appreciated about, and maybe you can help explain how this, the method for looking at the text that our old friend Peter Woods helped, how you just take a little text and allow ourselves to just receive it, a few lines, and notice how it impacts one. And in this way, one is metabolizing, reflecting on. There's something about to just give me the summary that doesn't allow us to trust that there's something mysteriously purifying and quickening and transformative about allowing the unfolding of the Buddha's words and intentions.
Yeah, when we were at Dharmagiri, the little center in South Africa, we had a priest with us for a year on a year's retreat who helped us put this whole course together, the text side of it in particularly. And he inducted us into a monastic Christian-based practice called Lectio Divina, which some of you may be familiar with, for reading sacred texts. So we basically use that form because it has a very beautiful way of entering texts that can sometimes feel like very dry and a bit of an academic troll through. Not everyone's mind relates to that style of transmission that we find. I certainly have trouble entering these heavy Buddhist texts sometimes, and the structure of the repetitive structure. So the Lectio Divina you can do solo and you can do in groups, and that's one way. You could also use a small practice group, is to take a text and then you read it, someone reads it, or you go around and share reading it, and then you find first of all maybe a sentence or a word that comes out for you, and then you explore. There's about 4 different questions that help you unpack the text from a different, like a less cognitive academic space and more like a felt sense, meaning, translating meaning through that way of discussion, which makes it very accessible for everyone, and it's more fun as well. So we'll be introducing that method and using it, and you can also use it on your own and journal around what does this spark for you when you enter this text. Contemplative reading. Thanks, Karim. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah G. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a bass note, I think, that can go through the year, that this is going on in the middle of what's going to be an ongoing vortex of challenges for sure, on all levels that are very affecting us in very deep ways, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. So I think just having this base note and check-in points can be really super supportive. Yeah, so this is really like a monastery without walls. I think that was one of our intentions, is how can we translate the processes of learning and practice from that more sort of enclosed space of a monastic training. How can we translate that into disparate world where there's all these influences and movement going on, and less containment. And so this, the repetitive nature, the sort of keep checking into the space note, keep starting again, wherever we landed up, keep starting again. These refrains were very patterned in the monastery. Like every day our abbot would say, yes, the past is gone. It's not completely gone, of course. We're still working with all the impacts, but in terms of what has happened, the future we don't exactly know. We can feel it, but there's this space of the unknown, and there we align and we start again, and every moment then becomes a fresh potential to apply this medicine of the Dharma. And so this is where, how we'll be approaching this course, really, to support, to start again, to be a base note, to be a container, to just be that hum in the background from all the cacophony of something more real and tangible. And that we know, even if we're not physically together, we know there's a group of folks doing it, is Sangha, including us and our practice leaders and teachers and so on, upholding this space, helping hold the space. Okay, I just
Sadhu.
Well said. As we say in the monastery after every Dharma utterance, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah. It's well said by the Buddha. It's an incredible, extraordinary gift that we've received from this awakened one and all of the incredibly dedicated practitioners over centuries, millennia, that had much less easy time than us in accessing teachings and sustaining their lives. We have a lot of access, but what's challenging for us is to simplify enough and be receptive enough to really ground in these Dharma doors. So we have a different challenge, but the pulse of the Dharma continues, so very timeless. And I think we both feel, and I'm sure you do too, the gratitude of this open-handed transmission that's gone through so many cultures and iterations over that time, from the Buddha, from the Sangha at that time, through Asia, from the Gangic plain of India, that long, long, long different world, time ago, so all the different cultures, different forms of the Dharma, and we have this opportunity to really benefit from the gift of that that's been passed down through these ancestors. So, it's an incredible gift, this triple jewel, basket of jewels.
I rejoice in the opportunity to do this together. So, thank you for being here, and I look forward to the ongoing many dances that unfold as we're little by little being drawn home to the sacred ground, this luminous, where we all ever abide. May the blessings of this time together in our lives and practice be shared above, below, and all around, like a pebble dropped into a pool, sending effortlessly ripples, ever expanding. So too may the goodness of our lives bless all beings, seen and unseen, especially touching those who feel hopeless and helpless, those dominated, abused, in harm's way. Truly may the goodness of our lives help transform the suffering of the world, that all may touch into peace, well-being, and true happiness. Almighty Padme Hum.
Thank you so much, dear friends, for being with us through this session. And invite you to join us for the course. No pressure. It's an invitation. And thank you for your practice and all that you're doing to hold a core of well-being and sanity in this moment. May we all stay well. May all be well. All beings stay well this time. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Mm.